Dignity in Death by Jennifer McCall. In my house there is a photo album. It stands on a shelf, the silver faint through a thin layer of dust. It's a photo album of my stepbrother, Kyle McCall, on his 21st birthday. And as happy as the event should have been, the pictures are hard to look at. The vision of my brother is stained by cancer. His birthday party took place in a bar across from the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute Hospital, and the pictures display him as thin and sickly, his skin tinted a pale blue and purple. There are tubes attached to his body, sustaining his life, but he smiled at the camera anyway, happy to have had his first legal drink. On August 18th, 2005, almost a month after his party, Kyle lost a 7-year battle against osteosarcoma, a type of bone cancer that eventually spread to his lungs and throughout his entire body from there. Having spent many hours in the hospital while Kyle battled cancer, our dad, Robert McCall, has an enormous gratitude for the doctors. At Dana-Farber and the Jimmy Fund, the doctors could not be better. They are smart, hard-working, informative, and always cheerful, he said. They supported the child and the family, and they became close family friends. You can only imagine the courage it takes to get close to a bald-headed little girl who is depending on you to save her life the day after you come back from your last bald-headed child's funeral. And yes, they do go to the funerals. If they could do something better, they would. His voice is level, but the emotion in his eyes is unmistakable. Cancer can be a long, degenerative illness where the disease consumes the body. In a study by Canadian oncologist Dr. Wayne Kendall, he concluded cancer patients have a 2 to 2.5 times greater risk of committing suicide than the general population. With the high risk of suicide in patients with terminally ill diseases, legalizing physician-assisted death seems logical. Although the public was divided on the practice, an AP Ipsos poll taken in 2007 showed that 68% said that there are circumstances in which a patient should be allowed to die. Today, 2 Death with Dignity Acts have been passed into law in the United States in Oregon and Washington. The most common reason people support these laws is that they have personal experience with a loved one's difficult and protracted death, said Melissa Barber, who works for the Death with Dignity National Center. Physician-assisted death, however, is not to be confused with doctor-assisted suicide. Assisted suicide is a term that's used by opponents to scare people, said Barber. The Death with Dignity National Center works to protect the 2 acts in Washington and Oregon while lending support to other states working to pass Death with Dignity acts. Oregon passed their Death with Dignity Act in 1997. The act allows terminally ill citizens of Oregon to end their lives through voluntary self-administration of lethal medications prescribed by doctors. Washington passed their law in 2008, and it follows the same guide as Oregon's act. There is support throughout the country for these laws, said Barber. We found strong support for the Death with Dignity laws in the New England region, she said. That's where we're focusing our attention. Currently, Vermont and Massachusetts are trying to pass Death with Dignity acts. There has been growing support throughout the country. In 2011, the documentary How to Die in Oregon was released, and Barber has seen support grow. Being a documentary, it was even-handed, she said. It simply showed the lives of some people who requested the medication and helped a lot of people understand why. While support has been growing, there are still those who oppose the laws. Throughout our organization's Twitter account and comments on our blog, I've experienced a few hostile reactions, said Barber. The issue of someone choosing to end their life is one that many people may not want to address, but at the same time, people need to address how to deal with the pain of those suffering. Susan McCall, Kyle's mother, told me about the time she stayed with him near the end of his life. She recalls it being near the middle of the night and Kyle waking up, crawling to the edge of the bed, and reaching out into the air. Kyle's hands curled around the air as if he were holding something, she said. It was like he was examining it before he made a motion of handing it back to whomever he was seeing and slipping back into bed. It was hard watching Kyle near the end of his battle with cancer. The boy who could once bankrupt an all-you-can-eat buffet was unable to stomach more than a couple bites of hamburger. Eventually, he slipped into a coma. It seemed like he was never going to come out of it. Our dad and his mother stayed in his hospital room trying to decide what was best. Kyle eventually awoke, and after eating a huge meal consisting of his favorite foods, he slipped into another coma. He never woke up, and the plug was pulled. It was time for him to rest. Looking at a picture of Kyle in that silver album, with pallid cheeks over the rim of a tall glass of beer he could barely lift in his fragile state, my dad sighed. There is a point where you realize that you are not helping him beat cancer. You are helping him die from cancer, he said. Helping him die was the hardest.